this.
I'm with Marc Weinstein, who is with DNA FUND. Do we call it DNA FUND?
Yeah, DNA.
No, what is it called? What's the name of this thing? It keeps changing. I don't want to piss off
Trust me,
Scott.
we added 2 more divisions. I was on the phone with Corey this morning, so just call it DNA.
Yeah, DNA, a premier crypto investment bank.
Hi, we're in Seoul. I'm with Marc Weinstein, who is with DNA. You're a premier crypto investment bank, and you see a lot of what's going on. You're both helping companies come to market and bringing investors to the table. You've been swinging through Asia. This has been an amazing few months, right? Because the markets have been up and down, even as the kind of deals have been maturing. So the first question I have is, what are the kind of emerging or most interesting kind of deals and problems that they're solving you're seeing in the crypto space here in the first half of the year?
Yeah, I think that the originally most investors in the crypto space, do I grab the mic from you?
No, just keep talking.
Okay. Originally, most investors in the crypto space had what's called the FAT protocol thesis. So it was the idea that if HTML had been tokenized and you were able to accrue value to the creators of HTML, it might have been the first $1 trillion business in the globe. That thesis has since evolved, in our opinion. We're at a point now where we have dozens of high-speed distributed ledger technology-based protocols that are able to process multiple thousands of transactions per second. And we believe that it's going to be a race to the bottom, and we're going to achieve scalability with at least enterprise-grade censorship resistance, meaning that it's appropriately decentralized. So moving from that, what does crypto need? Crypto needs adoption, right? Nowadays, if I wanted to get my mom to invest in crypto, she'd have to go from one of the fiat to crypto exchanges like a Coinbase or a GDAX or Gemini. Then she'd have to buy Ethereum. Then she'd have to send that Ethereum to another exchange where she can participate in, investing in alternative currencies or altcoins that are ERC20 based. Then she'd have to take the Ethereum and invest it through a cold storage wallet into an ICO. And so there's many steps. It's very confusing, right? The average individual.
There is friction if we're trying to expand the market.
Yes,
and there's
exactly.
also a whole thesis that says the value of crypto is proportional to the size of the market, so making it difficult for people, not so good.
Exactly. And it's not just about, it's no longer just about the foundational technology. We know that blockchain works. We know that it solves certain problems in the economy, specifically as Switch is trying to address the tragedy of the commons. However, we need adoption. So what we're excited about are projects that are adopting crypto or blockchain technology that have large existing user bases. So tens of millions of monthly active users already using their platform and that are building a seamless on-ramp into crypto. Gaming businesses like Machine Zone.
I think what you just said is a good way to grow crypto is find a business that's big and has customers and inject crypto into that.
Yes.
Because then you're bringing a bunch of happy customers with additional crypto benefits.
Yes.
Rather than telling people, hi, go out and get crypto.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So a perfect example of that is a company that we work with called Open Data Exchange, or ODX. It's founded by a man named Nick Nadello, who's one of the top entrepreneurs in Southeast Asia. And it's a spin out of a company called Zerpass, which is one of the highest valued companies in Southeast Asia as well. And so they have tens of millions of users on their platform already today that need access to mobile data. And in emerging economies, you're only able to access mobile data maybe 5 out of 30 days a month because it's super expensive. So Open Data Exchange is providing an on-ramp through crypto for them through which they can purchase, using tokens, mobile data. Does that make sense?
So you're basically able to buy mobile packets on the fly as needed.
Actually, sorry, scratch that.
Yeah.
So you're not, in fact, you're not buying them, it's free. So it's provided by publishers, but it's powered by blockchain.
Buying data in the developing world is expensive. You would like publishers to be able to provide it, to have access to their information.
Mm-hmm.
By tokenizing that, you can simplify that exchange and the publishers can furnish it for you. You can get tokens and get more time based on the publisher seeing an ad or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so this is interesting. To grow the business, we need to, in fact, I was talking to one of your deals last night that does loyalty programs, and the idea is You have a lot of people with loyalty programs, and you can have added benefits from crypto, and it can move across environments better. That would be good. One of the interesting things about Switch is that, here you have, there's already a huge global carbon market, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea is we're bringing Switch along to facilitate investments in renewables and also take this market that is local, that is kind of slow and not that fluid, and connecting it up. So it sounds like part of what you're saying, advice to Switch would be, go work with existing players that provide incentives and existing mechanisms of delivering carbon market access, and start tokenizing that. So the brand that the customer has a relationship with is someone he already knows, and they have a customer list. That's a powerful way of doing it. What you're really saying is, go get partners that have a B2C relationship, because building a B2B relationship, especially with something new, there's friction in that, is kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and it's not just, it doesn't have to just be B2C,
yeah,
but it needs to have access to either enterprises or consumers and make it easy for them to enter the space, right? And so it's like saying, if in the 2000s, you had Internet 1, if you didn't have a browser,
yeah,
you wouldn't be able to have Facebook or Airbnb or Google, for example, right? And kind of that's where we are in the crypto industry right now. The average user can't use the technology yet.
Yeah, this reminds me, by the way, in 1996. I know you.
I was 8.
You exactly. So I could not engage with you really about going to the store and buying a router. Then your mom wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
But I do remember literally trying to figure out, how do I get this internet thing going? Right. So I had AOL. That was fine. So was my phone fast enough? And then you had to buy a bunch of software, and there's some Unix, and there's a bunch of manuals, and then there was something about an ISP, and then there was more software. And I was in the tech industry, but I'm looking at this, and I'm like, one, this is difficult for me, and two,
exactly,
how could this possibly come from our industry? Right? So we're very similar kind of moment.
It was for the hobbyist, right? It was for the technology enthusiast, and that's kind of where crypto is right now. It's still not at a place yet where the average individual who doesn't want to take tens of hours a day to try to figure this stuff out to be able to use it.
Let's flip this around for a second. When we talk about the average individual, we're talking about individual users. There's also a whole side of this that is enterprise.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that has less of those problems. Talking about the state of what we're seeing in enterprise blockchain.
So we're seeing. At DNA, we advise enterprises on blockchain technology. Can you see our feet? So at DNA, we advise enterprises on blockchain technology. We just had an event with 50 executives from enterprises across the globe. We had a senior product manager at Verizon, Nextera Energy, which is relevant for Switch, Intuit, Farmers Insurance, etc. And they are extremely interested in this technology now. And they're trying to figure out how to adopt it and what use cases make sense to them. And oftentimes it has to do with industries in which there's multiple players, there's disparate sources of data that need to be parsed out, need to be compared and validated, and there's different or misaligned incentives between the organizations or the stakeholders within that ecosystem. So in the case of Switch, you have renewable energy producers, you have carbon credit traders, you have governments, you have the individual prosumers that want to be compensated for their renewable energy production, and I'm sure I'm missing a few. But all of their incentives are not necessarily entirely aligned. And then you have the issue of carbon pollution, right? And because of these misaligned incentives and the tragedy of the commons, we currently are in a situation where global warming is accelerating, and we need to get to a carbon neutral future in order for man to have a future. Blockchain can do that.
It's interesting because you're describing bringing a whole bunch of enterprises in that are, of course, curious about blockchain, and then what they're sharing with you is what they're learning about in terms of, or they're telling you, here's where we want to use a blockchain solution. Mm-hmm. And what I heard is it's the class of IT problem where there's lots of data, different kind of incentives, things across systems don't work well, so you can't just go to some central system. You need something that's distributed, and then you want kind of shared incentives that kind of bring it all into cohesion.
Yes, exactly.
Well, of course, that's exactly what Switch is up to, and what we're seeing is highly fragmented local markets, but also people aren't reporting all of that data. You know, you might report some of it for the government, but because all of that doesn't get reported in real time, you can't make smart real-time decisions to find the greatest value of where to put something. So it's interesting, you've described kind of what that enterprise problem is. Can you give me an example of similar ones, like if you're talking to carriers or other kind of companies?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one example, we were speaking to Farmers Insurance, and as it stands, it takes somewhere between 30 and 60 days to complete an insurance claim. So I get into an accident, I have to file a claim, my insurance company then needs to communicate with another insurance company, and validating all of the information of what happened just takes way too much time. So they're building a consortium of insurance operators that are going to be able to share data, individual user data, insurance premium data, accident data, etc., in a permissioned blockchain where the data is validated and trusted. And now this aligns incentives for the industry. That's one example. Another example, we were speaking to Monsanto about the food supply. So supply chain management is, is a primary use case for blockchain. We have 30% food waste across the globe. We have millions of individuals that are starving and unable to afford food, right? So if we can improve access to validated data in the supply chain for food, then we can lower that number.
This is extraordinarily useful because you're really describing the common elements of enterprise blockchain. It's so easy for this to get confusing, full of buzzwords, but what you're seeing here is kind of heterogeneous across industries, needs incentives. Data has to be at once provable and attestable, but private. And we've kind of talked about it in energy, because energy is highly distributed. Obviously, food and supply chain is. And as your point in insurance, you've got a whole bunch of actors that have to go here together. This reminds me of David Weinberger's early book on social media, where he talked to it. I believe it was something like, small pieces loosely joined. And his point was, it was these small connections across objects that allowed them to go here and share metadata and work together. Well, now what we're talking about is taking lots of different either sources of data or lots of different actors and connecting them up through an incentive network. An incentive network to get them to behave, and then having the data be shared, but the data is at once shared and it's provable, it's immutable, it's not tinker-withable, and it's kept private. And so what you see is connections between lots of different points because it's heterogeneous and complex. It behaves like a coherent network, but it's distributed. And that's kind of the mechanism that's being built here. And there's kind of a remarkable connection point across the enterprise set of problems you're talking about here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and you can extrapolate that to many other industries, like hotel booking is another example, or decentralized credit reports for banks, which also another issue that blockchain solves is having these kind of centralized points of attack. So you think about what happened with Equifax.
Yeah.
Is it Equifax or Experian?
I think they all got schmeiced, but Equifax took it in the chin.
Yeah, right. So is Equifax, right? And now we're working with a company called Spring Labs, which is out of Avant Credit, that's going to build a distributed solution for credit reporting to banks. And they have a consortium of banks that are already interested in using that technology.
Young-suk, this was a very...
One moment, can I pause you?
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Barry Watkins is going to come to us and talk about the hotel rooms we'll be in tonight and where we're going tomorrow.
Really, I got to get a guy, there's a guy standing out here who has to put coffee here and move on.